The scent of pine needles and ceremonial incense burned my nostrils as I kept my head down, watching my worn leather boots sinking into the forest floor with each hesitant step. Around me, the pack moved like a singular organism. Strong, unified, complete without me, their excited whispers and hushed conversations formed a tapestry of sound that only emphasized my silence. The autumn air carried a biting chill, but the real cold came from within as I followed at the edges of the procession, belonging yet not belonging. "Keep up, Elise," someone muttered, not even turning to face me. That was my lot in life. Elise Grant, the rejected Omega, the wolf without a mate, the broken one. The sacred grove loomed ahead, ancient trees stretching toward the darkening sky like gnarled fingers. Our pack visited this hallowed ground only once every decade, when our alpha selected his successor, or when a new Luna was to be chosen. Today was special. Alpha Rowan would finally select his mate, his Luna, the woman who would stand beside him and lead our pack into a new era of prosperity. I clutched the silver pendant my grandmother had pressed into my palm before she died. "When the world sees only weakness in you, remember that water shapes stone not through force, but through persistence," she had whispered. The pendant was simple, a small crescent moon with a single pearl embedded in its curve. It had been in our family for generations, though we had never held any position of power in the pack. My fingers traced its familiar edges as I remembered how my grandmother's eyes had never held pity for me, only a quiet certainty that I had never understood. The pack council had selected 12 potential mates for Alpha Rowan. 12 strong, beautiful, accomplished female wolves who possessed the qualities a Luna should have: strength, fertility, cunning, leadership. And then there was me, the 13th. A cruel joke from Beta James, who had always found my presence in the pack an insult to their bloodline. "The ceremony needs attendance," he had announced with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Elise will participate. She can carry the sacred crown." No one had protested. Why would they? I was useful for menial tasks, and nothing more. A wolf whose transformation was painful and incomplete, whose howl sounded broken, whose presence was tolerated only because pack law forbade the exile of bloodborne members without cause. My parents had died in a territorial dispute when I was young, leaving me to the reluctant care of the pack. As we reached the clearing in the heart of the sacred grove, I felt the weight of eyes upon me, not with hatred, which would at least have acknowledged my existence, but with indifference. The wolves began arranging themselves in the ritual circle, their movements practiced and fluid. The potential Lunas stood proudly at the front, their elegant dresses catching the last light of day. I recognized Sophia with her confident stance and raven hair, Maya with her calculated smile, and Claire with her warrior's build. Each woman radiated power and potential, each a perfect match for the alpha who had led our pack to prosperity after years of decline. "Elise," Beta James called, his voice startling me from my thoughts. "The crown." I moved toward the ancient stone altar at the center of the clearing, where the sacred crown rested upon a bed of velvet. The crown was beautiful and terrible, a circlet of silver inlaid with moonstones and inscribed with runes so ancient that even our pack historians could only guess at their meaning. Legend said it had been crafted during the first wolf moon, when our ancestors had first received the gift of transformation. "Don't touch it directly," Beta James warned, his voice carrying a threat. "Use the cloth." My hands trembled as I carefully lifted the crown using the ceremonial cloth, the weight of it surprising me. For something so delicate in appearance, it felt as though it contained the gravity of mountains. I could feel the pulse of something ancient emanating from it, resonating with something equally ancient within me. The ceremonial drums began to beat as Alpha Rowan entered the clearing. Even I, with my broken connection to my wolf, felt the power that radiated from him. Tall and broad-shouldered, with eyes that seemed to contain all the wildness of the forest, he moved with the confident grace of an apex predator. His dark hair was swept back, emphasizing the sharp planes of his face. At 32, he was in his prime, and under his leadership, our territory had expanded, our alliances had strengthened, and our enemies had learned to fear us. Our eyes met for a brief moment, and I quickly looked away, unsettled by the intensity of his gaze. It wasn't the first time I had caught him looking at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Curiosity, perhaps, or more likely the same puzzlement everyone felt toward the pack's broken Omega. "We gather under the witness of the moon," Elder Mira began, her voice carrying across the clearing despite her advanced age, "to select she who will stand beside our Alpha, she who will mother the next generation, she who will counsel and strengthen our pack." I stood silently, holding the crown as the 12 candidates stepped forward one by one, each stating her claim, each demonstrating her worth through recitation of accomplishments or displays of strength. The pack responded with howls of approval for each. My arms began to ache from holding the crown steady, but I dared not adjust my stance. "Now," Elder Mira continued, "our Alpha will make his choice known. The sacred crown will be placed upon the head of she who will become Luna." Alpha Rowan stepped forward, his expression unreadable. The pack fell silent, the tension palpable in the air. He looked at each candidate, his gaze thoughtful, measuring. "I have considered each worthy woman who stands before me," he said, his deep voice resonating through the clearing. "Each would bring strength to our pack." The candidates straightened, each hoping to be chosen. I kept my eyes on the ground, focusing on keeping the crown steady. "But the Luna is not chosen merely for what she brings to the pack," Alpha Rowan continued. "She is chosen because she completes the Alpha, because together they form a whole greater than its parts." He paused, and I could feel the anticipation building around me. "I have not found that completion among the candidates." A ripple of shock passed through the gathering. Elder Mira's eyes widened, and Beta James stepped forward in protest. "Alpha, the law requires you to choose." "I know the law," Alpha Rowan cut him off, his tone brooking no argument. "And I will choose. But first, a test." He turned toward me, and my heart stumbled in my chest. "Bring the crown forward, Omega." I moved woodenly, aware of every eye upon me, aware of my shabby clothes against the finery of the gathering, aware of the dirt beneath my fingernails and the scar that ran along my left cheek, a reminder of a time when Beta James's son had decided to teach the broken wolf her place. As I approached Alpha Rowan, I kept my eyes lowered, as was proper for my station. "Look at me," he commanded softly. I raised my eyes to his, surprised to find not disdain, but something searching in his gaze. "Do you know why the crown is sacred, Elise?" The sound of my name on his lips sent an unexpected shiver through me. I swallowed hard. It's said to reveal the true nature of whoever wears it." He nodded. "And what is your true nature, I wonder?" Before I could respond, Beta James interjected, "Alpha, surely you don't mean to..." Alpha Rowan silenced him with a look. Then he turned back to me. "Remove the cloth." My eyes widened. "But I was told not to touch it," he said, his voice gentle but firm. "I command it." The pack gasped collectively. For an Omega to touch the sacred crown was unheard of. Some even believed it would be damaged by the contact. "This is an outrage," Sophia, the most likely candidate, hissed. "She'll taint it with her weakness." I hesitated, torn between the direct command of my Alpha and the lifetime of being told I was unworthy. "Trust me," Alpha Rowan said, his voice for my ears alone. Slowly, I set aside the cloth. My fingers brushed against the cool metal of the crown, and immediately a jolt of energy shot through me, so powerful that I nearly dropped it. The moonstones began to glow with an inner light, pulsing like heartbeats. A gasp went up from the pack as the crown began to change, the silver brightening until it shone like captured moonlight, the stones shifting from pale white to a deep, luminous blue. "What's happening?" someone whispered. The energy from the crown spread through my body like wildfire, racing along every nerve. I felt my wolf stir within me. Not the weak, incomplete presence I had always known, but something powerful and ancient, clawing to be released. Pain ripped through me as bones began to shift and change. "She's transforming," Elder Mira exclaimed. "Here, now, outside the full moon." I dropped to my knees, still clutching the crown, as my body began to change. But unlike every painful partial shift I had experienced before, this one felt right, felt complete. My vision sharpened, colors becoming more vivid, scents more distinct. I could hear the racing heartbeats of every member of the pack, could sense their shock and fear. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the transformation stopped. I remained human, but something fundamental had changed. I could feel my wolf just beneath my skin, powerful and whole, no longer the broken, malformed presence that had haunted me all my life. Alpha Rowan knelt before me, his eyes wide with wonder. "I knew it," he whispered. "All these years, I knew there was more to you than they allowed you to be." "What's happening to me?" I managed to ask, my voice stronger than I had ever heard it. "The crown reveals truth," Elder Mira said, stepping forward cautiously. "It has revealed yours, child." Alpha Rowan gently took the crown from my trembling hands, and before anyone could protest, placed it upon my head. It settled against my blonde hair, as if it had been crafted for me alone. The moment it touched my brow, a wave of energy pulsed outward, washing over the entire gathering. Several wolves dropped to their knees as if in involuntary submission. "Impossible," Beta James breathed. "She's just a broken Omega." "No," Elder Mira said, her voice filled with awe. "She is Luna." Alpha Rowan held out his hand to me, his eyes never leaving mine. "The crown has chosen," he declared to the pack, "and so have I." As I placed my hand in his, feeling the strength and warmth of his grip, I realized that everything I had ever known about myself, everything I had been told, had been a lie. The rejected Omega was gone. In her place stood someone new, someone I was only beginning to discover. And as the pack looked on in stunned silence, I felt the first stirrings of power that would forever change not only my destiny, but the future of the entire pack. The journey back to the pack house was a blur of shocked whispers and averted gazes. Where once I had trailed behind the group, now I walked beside Alpha Rowan, his steady presence both comforting and terrifying. The sacred crown remained on my head, lighter than it had felt in my hands, yet somehow anchoring me to the earth beneath my feet. Each step felt different, as if I were learning to navigate the world anew. "They fear what they don't understand," Alpha Rowan said quietly, his words for me alone as murmurs rippled through the procession ahead of us. His hand occasionally brushed against mine, seemingly by accident, yet each touch sent electricity coursing through my veins. "I don't understand it myself," I admitted, my voice steadier than I expected. Inside, my wolf paced restlessly, no longer the weak, cowering creature I had known all my life, but something powerful and alert. The sensation was dizzying, like having a stranger living beneath my skin. The traditional pack house rose before us, a sprawling structure of stone and timber nestled against the mountainside. Normally, the return from a Luna selection was meant to be celebrated with feasting and dancing that lasted until dawn. Instead, an uneasy silence had fallen over our procession. "Alpha," Beta James called, stepping forward as we reached the main entrance. His face was a careful mask, but I could smell the sharp tang of his anger and confusion. "The council needs to convene immediately to discuss this unexpected development." Alpha Rowan's expression remained neutral, but I felt a subtle tension in his posture. "The council can wait until morning, James. Tonight, we honor tradition." "But the girl," Beta James began. "My chosen Luna," Alpha Rowan corrected, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble that made several nearby wolves lower their heads instinctively, "will be accorded every respect due her station. Am I understood?" Beta James's jaw tightened, but he inclined his head in reluctant deference. "Of course, Alpha." As we entered the great hall, I felt the weight of every stair. This vast space with its high timber beams and massive stone fireplace had always intimidated me. Pack gatherings had meant finding the darkest corner, making myself invisible. Now, Alpha Rowan guided me toward the raised platform, where two ornate chairs waited. The Alpha's throne, and beside it, the smaller but equally intricate seat, meant for the Luna. "I can't," I whispered, panic threatening to overwhelm me as we approached. "I don't know how to be this person they expect." Alpha Rowan's hand settled at the small of my back, warm and steady. "You don't have to be what they expect," he said. "Be who you are, who you're becoming. That's who the crown chose." I swallowed hard and managed a nod, letting him lead me forward. The moment I sat in the Luna's chair, a hush fell over the hall. It felt wrong, like trying on clothes that belonged to someone else, someone stronger, someone worthy. Elder Mira approached the platform, her ancient eyes studying me with newfound interest. She carried a small wooden box inlaid with silver, which she opened before me. Inside rested a silver goblet filled with dark red liquid that smelled of wine and something earthier, more primal. "The Luna's first cup," she explained. "Wine mixed with the blood of the Alpha. It symbolizes the union of your spirits, your wolves, your destinies." My hand trembled slightly as I took the goblet. In the firelight, the liquid looked almost black. Alpha Rowan watched me intently, and I realized this was my first test as Luna. To hesitate would show weakness, to refuse would be rejection. I raised the goblet to my lips and drank deeply. The liquid burned going down, but as it settled in my stomach, a pleasant warmth spread throughout my body. I could feel Alpha Rowan's essence mingling with mine, strengthening the inexplicable connection that had been forming between us since the moment I touched the crown. "The pack recognizes Elise as Luna," Elder Mira announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "May she bring wisdom, strength, and prosperity to our people." There should have been cheers, howls of celebration. Instead, a tense silence hung in the air, broken only by reluctant murmurs of "to the Luna" and the occasional clink of goblets. The traditional feast proceeded with a strained formality. Alpha Rowan engaged in quiet conversation with the elders seated near us, while I picked at food I couldn't taste, acutely aware of the whispers and stares. The 12 rejected candidates sat together at a distant table, their expressions ranging from shock to outrage. Sophia, in particular, watched me with undisguised hatred, her dark eyes never leaving my face. "You should eat," Alpha Rowan said softly, noticing my untouched plate. "You'll need your strength." There was something in his tone that made my cheeks flush. The bonding of an Alpha and Luna typically culminated in a mating ceremony, a thought that sent both fear and an unexpected thrill coursing through me. I forced myself to take a bite of roasted meat, though it tasted like ash in my mouth. "Why me?" I finally asked, the question that had been burning inside me since the moment in the sacred grove. "You could have had any of them. Strong wolves, respected women. Why choose the broken Omega?" Alpha Rowan's expression softened, the stern lines of his face relaxing into something almost tender. "You were never broken, Elise. You were hidden." His voice dropped even lower. "And you were never an Omega." Before I could ask what he meant, the doors to the great hall burst open. A group of mud-splattered wolves entered, their expressions grim. The scent of blood and unfamiliar wolves drifted toward us, and the hall immediately fell silent. "Border Patrol," Alpha Rowan said, rising to his feet. The leader of the group approached rapidly, dropping to one knee before the platform. "Alpha," the man said, breathing heavily. "The Northern Pack has crossed our borders. They've claimed the hunting grounds in Black Rock Valley." Alpha Rowan's expression hardened. "Casualties?" "2 injured, but they'll recover. We drove them back, but they left this." The patrol leader held up a blood-stained piece of fabric marked with the Northern Pack's symbol, a jagged mountain peak. "Their Alpha says he wants to discuss new territorial arrangements now that you've selected a Luna." The implication was clear in the patrol leader's tone. Our neighbors sensed weakness in Alpha Rowan's unexpected choice. "In me. Tell the Northern Alpha I'll meet with him," Alpha Rowan said, his voice carrying throughout the now silent hall. "Tomorrow at midday, at the border stone." As the patrol leader withdrew, I felt the mood in the hall shift from strained celebration to tense preparation. Border disputes between packs often led to bloodshed, and the Northern Pack was known for its aggression. Under the previous Alpha, they had taken 3 of our hunting valleys before Alpha Rowan had fought to reclaim them. "I should prepare the warriors," Beta James said, his earlier animosity momentarily set aside in the face of external threat. Alpha Rowan nodded. "Select 20 of our strongest, but this will be a meeting, not a battle, yet." As the pack dispersed to prepare, Alpha Rowan turned to me. "Come," he said simply, extending his hand. I took it, allowing him to lead me from the great hall and up the grand staircase to the private quarters on the 2nd floor. My heart hammered in my chest as we approached the Alpha's suite, rooms I had never seen, had never expected to enter. The traditional first night between Alpha and Luna loomed before me, both terrifying and intriguing. Instead of the Alpha's bedroom, however, he led me to a smaller chamber connected to his suite. A sitting room with a fireplace, bookshelves, and a wide window overlooking the forest. He closed the door behind us, and suddenly we were truly alone for the first time. "You have questions," he said, moving to pour 2 glasses of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. "Hundreds," I admitted, accepting the glass he offered. The crown still rested on my head, and I reached up to touch it hesitantly. "Can I remove this?" "It's yours now," he said. "But yes, you can set it aside when you wish." Carefully, I lifted the crown from my head and placed it on a small side table. Without its weight, I felt strangely vulnerable, as if I might revert to my former self at any moment. "You said I was never an Omega," I began, choosing the most pressing of my questions. "What did you mean?" Alpha Rowan settled into a chair opposite me, his large frame somehow not diminished by the domestic setting. "What do you know of your parents, Elise?" I shook my head. "Very little. They died in a border dispute when I was 4. The pack took me in because law forbids abandoning blood-borne cubs." His expression darkened. "That's what you were told." A chill ran through me. "What's the truth?" "Your mother was Luna of the Eastern Pack," he said, watching my reaction carefully. "Your father was their Alpha." The glass nearly slipped from my fingers. "That's impossible. I would have been told. You were meant to be told when you came of age," he continued. "But those who knew the truth either died or were sworn to secrecy." "Why?" "Because your parents didn't die in a border dispute. They were murdered by members of our own pack." The world seemed to tilt beneath me. "But why would—" "Power," Alpha Rowan said simply. "Fear. The Eastern and Western packs, our pack, had been enemies for generations. Your parents negotiated a peace treaty, a merging of territories. Not everyone wanted peace." I set my untouched drink aside, my hands shaking too badly to hold it. "How do you know this? You would have been a child yourself. My father was Alpha then. He discovered the plot too late to save your parents, but he found you hiding in the forest. He brought you here, changed your name, concealed your identity. He feared the conspirators would kill you too if they knew you had survived." "And what happened to these conspirators?" I asked, my voice sounding distant to my own ears. "My father executed those he could identify, but he always believed there were others, wolves whose involvement he couldn't prove." I closed my eyes, trying to process this revelation. "So I was never." "You were born to be Alpha, Elise," he said softly. "Born to lead, the daughter of 2 powerful bloodlines. But something was done to suppress your wolf, to keep you weak and submissive. A mixture of herbs, I suspect, administered when you were too young to remember. By the time my father realized what was happening, the damage appeared permanent. Until the crown," I whispered, understanding dawning. He nodded. "The sacred crown reveals truth. It broke through whatever magic or medicine was used to bind your wolf. And you knew? All this time?" "I suspected. My father told me the truth before he died. Made me swear to watch over you, but I had no proof, no way to restore you to your rightful place. Until today." I stood abruptly, moving to the window. Outside, the moon hung nearly full in the night sky, and beneath its light, pack members moved through the compound, preparing for tomorrow's confrontation with the northern pack. "Who?" I asked, my voice hardening. "Who among the pack was involved?" Alpha Rowan was silent for a long moment. "I have suspicions, but no certainty." I turned to face him. "Beta James? Possibly. He was young then, but his father was my father's Beta. And I always questioned his sudden death soon after your parents were killed." A cold anger began to rise within me, my newly awakened wolf growling at the betrayal. "That's why you made this public, why you had me touch the crown in front of everyone." He inclined his head. I needed to see who reacted, who showed fear rather than just surprise. His eyes met mine, intense and unwavering. "And I needed to free you from whatever bound your true nature, to make me your Luna," I said, trying to understand his motivation. To restore what was taken from you, he corrected, making you Luna. That was my choice. A choice I've considered for longer than you might believe. The intensity in his voice made my pulse quicken. You don't even know me. I've watched you for years, Elise. Watched how you endured their cruelty with dignity. How you helped others despite being treated as less. Your compassion. Your quiet strength. I know you better than you think. The realization that he had seen me, truly seen me, when I thought myself invisible to all, especially him, was overwhelming. I turned back to the window, unable to face the emotion in his eyes. Tomorrow, I said, changing the subject, the Northern Pack. They're testing you because of me. They're testing us, he corrected. And they will learn their mistake. What do you need me to do? I asked, surprising myself with my readiness. Alpha Rowan moved to stand beside me at the window, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Be who you are now becoming. The crown has awakened your wolf, but your power is still new, untested. You need rest. He gestured toward a door that I assumed led to separate sleeping quarters. Tomorrow will bring challenges enough. As I moved toward the door, a thought stopped me. You said my parents were negotiating peace between the packs, a merging of territories. He nodded, understanding where my thoughts led. History repeats itself, it seems. Then we need to succeed where they failed, I said, a new resolve strengthening my voice, for their memory and for our future. Alpha Rowan's eyes gleamed with approval, and something deeper, something that made my skin flush with warmth. Rest well, Luna, he said softly. Tomorrow we face our first challenge together. Sleep eluded me that night, my mind racing with revelations. Each time I closed my eyes, fragmented memories surfaced, a woman's gentle laugh, a man's strong arms lifting me high, the scent of a different forest. Were these true memories of my parents, or just my imagination filling the void? The newly awakened wolf inside me paced restlessly, as if making up for years of suppression. Dawn broke with pale golden light filtering through the window. I rose and found clothes laid out for me. Not the simple garments I was accustomed to, but attire befitting a Luna. The soft leather pants and fitted jacket were dyed a deep blue that matched the transformed moonstones in the crown. I dressed quickly, surprised by how naturally the fine clothes seemed to fit not just my body but my emerging sense of self. A soft knock at the door revealed a young woman I recognized as Emma, one of the pack's healers. Luna, she said, lowering her eyes respectfully. Alpha Rowan asked me to attend to you this morning. The title still sounded foreign to my ears. Thank you, Emma, but I don't need— If I may, she interrupted gently. Your wolf is newly awakened. I've brought herbs to ease the transition. I hesitated, remembering Alpha Rowan's words about herbs that had suppressed my true nature. What kind of herbs? Emma seemed to understand my suspicion. Strengthening herbs only, Luna. Rosemary for clarity, wolf's bane for control, in very small amounts. I've prepared them myself this morning. Something in her earnest expression reassured me. I nodded, allowing her to enter. As she prepared a tea with the dried herbs, I studied her more carefully. You don't seem surprised, I observed, by what happened yesterday. Emma kept her eyes on her work. I'm a healer. I've sensed something different about your wolf for years, not weakness, dormancy. She glanced up briefly. Some of us have long suspected you were more than what others claimed. Some of you? A small smile played at her lips. Not everyone in the pack followed Beta James's lead in how they viewed you. Some of us observed, waited. This revelation, that I had unseen allies within the pack, warmed something inside me. As I sipped the bitter tea Emma prepared, I felt my wolf settling, becoming more integrated with my human self, rather than a separate, restless entity. The Alpha is waiting for you in the strategy room, Emma said, as she gathered her things to leave. The Northern Pack's delegation has been spotted approaching our borders. I thanked her and made my way through the pack house, aware of how differently wolves regarded me now, some with newfound respect, others with poorly concealed suspicion. The weight of the crown, which I had placed back upon my head, reminded me that there was no returning to invisibility. The strategy room buzzed with activity when I entered. Maps were spread across a large table, and Alpha Rowan stood at its head, deep in discussion with his senior warriors. He looked up as I entered, and for a moment, everyone fell silent. "Luna," he acknowledged, his eyes taking in my appearance with evident approval. I moved to stand beside him, noting how Beta James shifted uncomfortably at my approach. "We've received word that Northern Alpha Thorn brings a delegation of 15 wolves," Rowan explained, pointing to marked positions on the map. "We'll meet them at the border stone with equal numbers." "And if it's a trap?" one of the senior warriors asked. "Our scouts are positioned here and here," Rowan indicated. "If the Northern Pack brings additional forces or attempts to encircle us, we'll know." "What do they want?" I asked, studying the map. Beta James made a dismissive noise. "The same thing they always want. More territory. More resources." "Perhaps," Alpha Rowan said, "but their timing suggests something more specific." He looked at me meaningfully. "They've waited until now, after the Luna selection, to make this move. They think we're vulnerable," I concluded. "Because of me." Several pairs of eyes shifted uncomfortably, but Alpha Rowan nodded. "Alpha Thorn is testing us, yes. Which makes this meeting about more than territory." "It's about respect," I said, understanding dawning. "About establishing that the pack remains strong despite," I hesitated, "despite unexpected changes." Alpha Rowan's lips curved in a subtle smile. "Precisely." The journey to the border stone took nearly an hour, our procession moving swiftly through dense forest until we reached a wide clearing marked by a massive boulder at its center. Ancient pack symbols were carved into its surface, boundary markers established generations ago. The Northern Pack's delegation was already waiting, their postures deliberately relaxed but alert. At their center stood Alpha Thorn, a heavily muscled man with a face marked by battle scars and cold, calculating eyes. As we approached, his gaze fixed on me with undisguised interest. "Alpha Rowan," he called in greeting. "I see the rumors are true. You've selected your Luna at last." Our wolves formed a loose semicircle facing theirs, with Alpha Rowan and me at the center. I kept my back straight, chin lifted, trying to project the strength I still wasn't sure I possessed. "Alpha Thorn," Rowan returned evenly. "You've crossed into our hunting grounds uninvited. Explain yourself." Thorn smiled, the expression never reaching his eyes. "Merely ensuring the boundary markers remain clear to all parties, especially in times of transition." His gaze shifted pointedly to me. "Though I must say, your choice of Luna surprises me. We'd heard your pack prize strength." The insult hung in the air. Beside me, I felt Rowan's anger like physical heat, but his expression remained impassive. "The sacred crown chose," he replied simply, "as is our way." Something flickered across Alpha Thorn's face. Surprise, perhaps, or disbelief. "The crown?" He studied me more carefully now, his eyes narrowing. "Interesting." An older wolf leaned in to whisper something in Thorn's ear. Whatever was said caused the Northern Alpha's expression to shift from contempt to calculation. "I propose a new agreement between our packs," Thorn said abruptly. "A joining of hunting territories along the river basin with shared access." Beta James stepped forward. "Those territories have belonged to our pack for generations. Why would we share what is rightfully ours?" "Because," Thorn replied with a predatory smile, "I offer something valuable in return. Information." His gaze locked on me. Information about a certain Eastern Pack bloodline that was thought to be extinguished years ago. My breath caught. Alpha Rowan moved imperceptibly closer to me, his shoulder nearly touching mine. "What could you possibly know about that?" Rowan asked, his voice deceptively calm. Thorn spread his hands in a gesture of false openness. "The death of an alpha pair rarely remains truly secret, particularly when it involves internal conflicts. My father was alpha then. He kept records. Records that could wait for a formal diplomatic exchange," Alpha Rowan countered. "Not a hasty border meeting." "True," Thorn conceded. "But perhaps your Luna is eager to learn about her heritage sooner rather than later. About the circumstances of her parents' deaths." The direct acknowledgement of my identity sent a ripple of shock through both delegations. Several of our pack members cast startled glances my way, while others looked confused. Beta James's face had drained of color. "You seem to have been misinformed," Rowan said coolly. "My Luna's parents died in a border dispute when she was a child, a common tragedy." Thorn's smile widened. "Is that the story they told her? Interesting." He turned his attention directly to me. "Tell me, Luna, wouldn't you prefer the truth? I could share what my father recorded about the night the Eastern Pact's leadership was eliminated. The temptation to learn more about my parents, about what had really happened, was nearly overwhelming. But beneath Thorn's offer, I sensed a trap. He was trying to drive a wedge between me and the pack, to make me doubt Alpha Rowan. "I already know enough truth," I said, finding strength in my voice. "I know who I am, and I know that wolves who use old tragedies as bargaining chips cannot be trusted with new alliances." A murmur of approval rippled through our ranks. Thorn's smile faltered slightly. "You speak boldly for someone who was considered a broken Omega just yesterday," he observed. "But pretty words don't establish a Luna's worth. Power does." "If it's a demonstration of power you want," Alpha Rowan growled, his patience clearly thinning, "you're treading dangerously close to receiving one." Thorn held up his hands in a placating gesture. "No need for threats between alphas. I merely suggest that traditions exist for testing a new Luna's fitness to lead." His gaze settled on me again. "The trial of blood, perhaps, to settle any doubts." The trial of blood was an ancient custom, rarely invoked in modern times, a test of a Luna's strength, courage, and connection to her wolf. It involved hunting alone, bringing down prey without assistance, then sharing the lifeblood of the kill with her alpha before the pack. It was dangerous, particularly for one as inexperienced with her wolf as I was. "Such trials are our pack's internal affair," Alpha Rowan said dismissively, "not subject to outside suggestion." "Of course," Thorn agreed with false deference. "I merely thought, given the unusual circumstances, you might welcome an opportunity to silence any whispers within your own ranks." He glanced meaningfully toward Beta James and several other wolves whose loyalty to me was clearly questionable. Before Alpha Rowan could respond, I stepped forward. "I accept the trial." Rowan turned to me sharply, surprise evident in his features. "Elise, a Luna makes her own decisions," I said quietly, for his ears alone. "Isn't that what you told me? That I was born to lead?" His eyes searched mine, concern warring with respect. Finally, he gave a subtle nod and turned back to Alpha Thorn. "It seems my Luna has spoken," he said. "The trial will be conducted according to our traditions, without interference." Thorn inclined his head, satisfaction evident in his posture. "A wise decision. We'll withdraw from your hunting grounds, for now, and await news of the outcome with great interest." His smile returned, sharp and knowing. "After all, the stability of neighboring packs affects us all." As the northern pack's delegation retreated, tension remained thick in the air. Our wolves maintained their positions until the last of Thorn's people had disappeared into the trees. "You shouldn't have accepted," Alpha Rowan said, as we began our return journey. "The trial of blood is dangerous, even for those who have lived their whole lives with fully awakened wolves." "It's necessary," I replied. "You saw their faces. Half our own pack still doubts me." I glanced at Beta James, who was deliberately keeping his distance. "And now they all know who I really am, or at least suspect. If I don't prove myself worthy, we'll face challenges not just from outside our borders, but from within." Alpha Rowan's expression softened slightly. "You speak like a true Luna already. But your wolf is newly awakened. You haven't even experienced your first full shift yet. Then I'll need to learn quickly," I said, with more confidence than I felt. "The full moon is tomorrow night. That gives me one day to prepare." The pack house was alive with whispers by the time we returned. News of my true heritage and the upcoming trial of blood had spread faster than wildfire, fragmenting loyalties and stirring ancient grudges. I caught snippets of conversations that abruptly halted as I passed. Speculation about the Eastern Pack, questions about who had known the truth, and doubts about whether I could possibly succeed in the trial. "You need training," Alpha Rowan said, as he led me to a secluded clearing behind the pack house. "Your wolf may be awakened, but she's unpracticed. The afternoon sun filtered through the canopy of trees, dappling the ground with golden light. In the center of the clearing, Alpha Rowan stopped and turned to face me. Shifting outside the full moon is one of the hardest skills for any wolf to master, he explained. But the crown has given you access to your true power. We need to see if you can call your wolf at will. I nodded, trying to hide my nervousness. How do I begin? Close your eyes, he instructed, his voice dropping to a deeper register. Feel your wolf just beneath your skin. She's not separate from you. She is you. I followed his guidance, shutting out the visual world and turning my attention inward. There, just as he described, I could feel my wolf's presence. No longer the weak, incomplete shadow I'd known all my life, but a powerful entity vibrating with barely contained energy. Now, Rowan continued, his voice closer now. Think of what makes you feel most alive, most powerful, most yourself. What came to mind wasn't power or strength, but the moment in the sacred grove when I'd first touched the crown, that surge of recognition, of coming home to myself after being lost for so long. I focused on that feeling, letting it expand through my body. Pain lanced through me as bones began to shift and muscles stretched. A cry escaped my lips, quickly transforming into something more primal. I fell forward onto hands that were rapidly becoming paws, my skin giving way to thick, pale fur that caught the sunlight like spun gold. The transformation was excruciating, but exhilarating. Nothing like the partial, agonizing shifts I'd experienced during full moons before. This felt right, felt complete. When it finished, I stood on 4 legs, my senses overwhelmed by new information, scents I'd never detected, sounds I'd never heard, colors I'd never seen. Alpha Rowan stood before me, his expression one of poorly concealed awe. Extraordinary, he murmured. I took a tentative step forward, still adjusting to my new form. My wolf's body felt simultaneously foreign and more natural than my human one had ever felt. Most wolves need months of practice to shift at will, Rowan said, crouching to meet my gaze at eye level. Your true nature is asserting itself rapidly. A twig snapped at the edge of the clearing, and my head whipped around, ears pricked forward. Emma stood there, a leather satchel clutched in her hands. Forgive the interruption, she said, eyes wide as she took in my transformed state. Elder Mira sent me with supplies for the Luna's preparation. Alpha Rowan nodded permission for her to approach. As she came closer, I caught a cacophony of scents from her satchel. Herbs, oils, something metallic that made my wolf wary. The trial of blood requires preparation of both body and spirit, Emma explained, setting her supplies on a flat stone. These are traditional elements used by Lunas for generations. I shifted back to human form, the reverse transformation coming more easily than I'd expected, and wrapped the cloak Alpha Rowan handed me around my shoulders. What exactly does the trial entail? I asked, looking between Rowan and Emma. You must hunt alone, Emma explained, unpacking small vials and packets of dried herbs. Take down prey worthy of an alpha pair, and return with its heart still warm. The specific prey is your choice, Rowan added, but the challenge must be meaningful. Something that tests your strength and cunning. Emma nodded. Then you share the first blood with your alpha before the pack. It symbolizes your ability to provide, to contribute equally to the pack's strength. The task sounded daunting for someone who had never successfully hunted even a rabbit. And if I fail? Let's focus on preparation, Alpha Rowan deflected, though his expression told me enough. Failure would mean more than personal humiliation. It would undermine my position as Luna, and possibly his position as Alpha for choosing me. Emma uncorked a small vial of dark liquid. This is an infusion of bloodroot and wolf's blood flowers. It will heighten your connection to your wolf spirit. She handed it to me. Drink half now, half at moonrise tonight. The liquid burned going down, tasting of earth and metal and something ancient I couldn't name. Almost immediately, I felt my wolf stir more powerfully within me, as if drawn closer to the surface of my consciousness. Now, Emma continued, uncapping a jar of reddish paste. This is for marking, traditionally applied by the Alpha to his Luna before her trial. Alpha Rowan took the jar from her, his fingers brushing mine in the process. I'll see to it. Thank you, Emma. The healer bowed slightly and retreated, leaving us alone again in the clearing. The paste smelled strongly of cedar and iron, with undertones of something musky and wild. This ritual dates back to our earliest ancestors, Rowan explained, dipping his fingers into the paste. The markings channel your wolf's power, focus your instincts. He stepped closer, and I tilted my face up to his. With deliberate movements, he traced a symbol on my forehead, a crescent moon, with a single line bisecting it. For clarity of purpose, he murmured. His fingers moved to my cheeks, drawing parallel lines beneath my eyes. For true sight, to see beyond appearances, then to my throat, where he traced a circular pattern that made my pulse quicken beneath his touch. For the voice of command that all must heed. Finally, he took my hands in his, marking each palm with a spiral pattern. For the strength to take what is rightfully yours. The paste seemed to burn slightly where it touched my skin, not painfully, but with a pleasant warmth that sank deeper with each passing moment. When he finished, Alpha Rowan stepped back, his eyes dark with an intensity that made my breath catch. "There are wolves who will try to ensure you fail tomorrow," he said quietly. "Not just with words, but with actions." Beta James, I guessed, almost certainly. "And others whose loyalties lie with the old order." His jaw tightened. "Your parents threatened a power structure that had existed for generations. Their vision of uniting the packs would have displaced many who enjoyed positions of privilege." "Like James's father," I said, piecing together the implications. Rowan nodded. "The same wolves who feared your parents' influence now fear yours. They've worked for years to keep you weak, to ensure you never discovered your heritage. They won't simply accept the crown's choice." "What will they do?" I asked, a chill running through me despite the afternoon warmth. "Interfere with your hunt, perhaps frighten away prey or lead you into a trap." His expression darkened. "Or worse." I absorbed this, feeling strangely calm. Perhaps it was the bloodroot infusion, or perhaps simply the clarity that came with finally understanding the forces that had shaped my life from the shadows. "Then I need more than spiritual preparation," I said decisively. "I need practical knowledge, hunting skills, tracking, and I need to understand who I can trust." Alpha Rowan's lips curved in a smile of approval. "We begin now." The remaining daylight hours passed in intensive training. Alpha Rowan taught me to track by scent, to move silently through the forest, to identify the patterns of prey animals and predict their movements. My newly awakened wolf absorbed these lessons with surprising ease, as if remembering skills long suppressed rather than learning them anew. As dusk approached, we were joined by 3 wolves Rowan trusted implicitly, his cousin Galen, a tracker named Ash, and to my surprise, Emma. They brought weapons traditionally used in the trial of blood, a ceremonial dagger for the taking of the heart, and a curved hunting knife. "The trial must be completed in wolf form," Galen explained as he demonstrated proper grips and strikes with the practice blades. "But you'll need to shift back momentarily to take the heart with the ritual dagger. It's an ancient custom, acknowledging that we are both wolf and human." I practiced the required movements until my muscles ached and sweat dampened my hair. When I finally collapsed onto a fallen log, exhausted, Emma handed me a water skin. "You're learning faster than anyone expected," she said with quiet approval. "Your bloodline is asserting itself." "Will it be enough?" I asked, too tired for pretense. Emma's eyes were kind but honest. "The trial of blood would challenge even wolves raised to lead. But you have advantages they don't anticipate." "Like what?" "They expect you to think like the Omega they forced you to be, cautious, submissive, uncertain. But that's not who you are. It never was." She nodded toward Alpha Rowan, who was deep in conversation with Ash across the clearing. "And you have his faith. That's no small thing." As night fell, we returned to the pack house. The second half of Emma's infusion waited for me, which I drank under her watchful eye. Then came a simple meal that I barely tasted, my mind already focused on the challenges of the following day. Alpha Rowan walked me to my quarters afterward, pausing at the door. The ritual markings he had applied still adorned my skin, now dried to a deep rust color that seemed to shimmer slightly in the torchlight. "Rest," he said. "Tomorrow will demand all your strength." I caught his hand as he turned to leave. "Why did you wait so long?" I asked. "If you suspected the truth about me, why not reveal it years ago?" His expression softened. "I needed proof and power. When my father died and I became Alpha, there were still many loyal to the old Beta, to James's family. If I had moved too soon, revealed what I suspected," he shook his head, "they would have eliminated you before I could protect you. I had to build my strength, my authority, gather allies I could trust absolutely." "And the crown? You knew what would happen when I touched it?" "I hoped," he corrected. "The legends say it reveals one's true nature. I gambled that it would break whatever magic bound your wolf. I studied him in the dim light, this man who had watched over me from a distance for years, planning, waiting, risking his own position to restore mine." "Thank you," I said simply. His hand turned in mine, fingers intertwining with unexpected gentleness from one so powerful. "From the first moment I saw you, I knew there was more to you than others claimed. Even before my father told me the truth of your heritage, something in me recognized something in you." The intensity in his eyes made my heart race. Slowly, giving me every opportunity to pull away, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to mine. The kiss was gentle at first, almost questioning, then deepened as I responded. Heat coursed through me, my wolf surging close to the surface with a possessive hunger that matched the growing desire in his touch. When we finally separated, both slightly breathless, Alpha Rowan rested his forehead against mine. "I've waited years to do that," he admitted, his voice rough. "Was it worth the wait?" I asked, surprising myself with my boldness. His answering smile was both tender and predatory. "I'll let you know tomorrow, after you've passed your trial and taken your rightful place as my Luna. Not just in name, but in every way." The promise in his words sent a shiver of anticipation through me. He stepped back, visibly exercising control. "Sleep now," he said. "Dream of the hunt." But as I prepared for bed, it wasn't the hunt that filled my thoughts. It was the memory of his lips on mine, the strength of his hands, and the promise of what awaited if I succeeded tomorrow. For the first time, I allowed myself to truly want this new life that had been thrust upon me, to claim it not just as my birthright, but as my choice. Outside my window, the moon hung in the sky, nearly full. Tomorrow night, beneath its complete radiance, I would either claim my place as Luna, or lose everything I had only just discovered I wanted. Morning came too quickly, the pale light of dawn filtering through my window, and finding me already awake, my mind cycling through strategies and concerns. I'd slept fitfully, dreams filled with running wolves and shadowed forests. The ritual markings on my skin had dried completely, now appearing like delicate tattoos against my pale skin. A soft knock announced Emma's arrival with a tray of food and a steaming cup of tea. "For strength," she explained, as I eyed the dark liquid warily. "Just herbs this time, I promise. Nothing to alter your mind or wolf." I sipped the bitter brew as she laid out my clothing for the trial. Form-fitting leather pants and a simple tunic, both dyed a deep indigo blue that seemed to be becoming my signature color as Luna. The outfit was practical for shifting, designed to be easily removed when the change came upon me. "The entire pack will gather at midday," Emma said as she helped me dress. "Alpha Rowan will present you, and then you'll have until sunset to complete your hunt." "And the northern pack?" I asked, remembering Alpha Thorn's interest in the outcome. "They've sent observers," she admitted. 3 of their senior wolves arrived this morning. It's unusual, but Alpha Rowan permitted it. This added pressure made my stomach tighten, but I forced myself to project calm confidence. "Good. Let them see that their assumptions about me were wrong." Emma smiled, a fierce pride in her eyes. "That's the spirit of a true Luna." When I emerged from my quarters, I found Alpha Rowan waiting in the hallway. He wore formal attire, black pants and a charcoal tunic embroidered with silver thread in patterns that matched the ceremonial markings on my skin. The sight of him stole my breath momentarily, power and grace embodied in his tall frame. His eyes warmed as they swept over me. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be," I replied honestly. He offered his arm, and I placed my hand upon it, feeling the solid muscle beneath the fabric. Together, we walked through the pack house, and out to the great clearing where the entire pack had assembled. Over 200 wolves formed a wide circle, their expressions ranging from supportive to openly hostile. At the front stood Beta James, his face carefully neutral, though his eyes burned with poorly concealed contempt. Near the edge of the circle, I spotted the northern pack observers, 3 severe-looking wolves who watched with calculating interest. Their presence sent a clear message. The outcome of today's trial had implications beyond our pack borders. Alpha Rowan led me to the center of the circle where Elder Mira waited, the sacred crown resting on a velvet cushion in her ancient hands. As was tradition, I had not worn it today. I would either earn the right to wear it again by succeeding in my trial, or forfeit it forever by failing. Wolves of the Western Pack, Alpha Rowan's voice carried easily across the clearing. Today we witness the trial of blood, an ancient rite by which a Luna proves her worth to lead beside her Alpha. A murmur ran through the assembly. Such trials were rare in modern times, typically reserved for Lunas who came from outside the pack. Some of you have expressed concern about my choice, he continued, his tone hardening slightly. Today, those concerns will be addressed. His gaze swept the gathering, lingering briefly on certain wolves. Those I now understood had been part of the conspiracy to keep me suppressed, to hide my true heritage. Let it also be known, he added, his voice dropping to a dangerous register, that any interference with this sacred trial will be considered treason against the pack, punishable by exile or death. Beta James shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. Elder Mira stepped forward, her frail appearance belied by the strength in her voice. Elise of the Western Pack, daughter of the Eastern bloodline, do you accept the trial of blood? Do you seek to prove your worthiness to wear the sacred crown and stand as Luna? I do, I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. The elder nodded and turned to address the gathering. The trial begins now and ends at sunset. The candidate will hunt alone without assistance. She will return with the heart of worthy prey, taken by her own hand, to be shared with her Alpha before the pack. Alpha Rowan turned to me, his eyes intense. Choose your hunting grounds, he said, loud enough for all to hear. As is your right. This was the first test. The choice of territory would signal my confidence and strategy. Choosing too close to the pack house might suggest fear or weakness, while venturing too far into dangerous territory could be seen as reckless. The Eastern Ridge, I announced after a moment's consideration. Beyond the Silver Stream, a ripple of surprise moved through the gathering. The Eastern Ridge was challenging terrain, densely forested, with steep inclines and rocky outcroppings. It was also symbolically appropriate, a nod to my newly revealed heritage. Alpha Rowan's lips curved in subtle approval. So be it. With a final nod to him and Elder Mira, I turned and walked toward the edge of the circle. As I passed Beta James, his voice reached me, pitched low for my ears alone. You won't return from this hunt, little Omega. One way or another. I didn't break stride, but his threat confirmed what Alpha Rowan had warned. Some would actively work to ensure my failure. As I reached the tree line, I cast one glance back at the assembled pack. Alpha Rowan stood tall and confident, his faith in me evident even at this distance. I drew strength from his certainty and plunged into the forest. Once out of sight, I paused to center myself, closing my eyes and reaching for my wolf. The transformation came more easily this time, my body flowing into its lupine form with only a momentary flash of pain. My senses expanded dramatically, the forest becoming a tapestry of scents, sounds, and movements that my human perception could never have detected. I began to run, reveling in the power of my wolf's body, the smooth coordination of muscle and sinew that propelled me effortlessly through the underbrush. The sensation was intoxicating. Freedom after a lifetime of constraint. The journey to the Eastern Ridge took nearly an hour at a steady lope. As I climbed higher, the forest thinned, giving way to rocky terrain interspersed with hardy pine trees. From this elevation, I could see much of our territory spread below. The pack house, a distant collection of structures nestled against the base of the mountains. Now came the real challenge, finding prey worthy of an alpha pair. A deer or elk would be the traditional choice, but I needed something that would truly silence my critics. As I scented the air, calculating my options, a distinctive musk reached my nostrils. Mountain lion, apex predator, challenging prey, even for experienced wolves hunting in pairs. Perfect. I followed the scent trail cautiously, aware that I was tracking a dangerous predator in its home territory. The mountain lion's path wound higher up the ridge, toward a series of caves that dotted the mountainside. Fresh markings on trees and rocks told me this was an established territory, likely belonging to a mature adult. A faint sound, the scrape of claw on stone, alerted me to movement above. I pressed myself against the rocky ground, my pale fur blending with the light-colored stone as I peered upward. There, on a ledge about 20 feet up, lounged a massive mountain lion, its tawny coat gleaming in the midday sun. It was a male, powerfully built, with muscles rippling beneath its hide as it groomed itself, unaware of my presence. I assessed the situation carefully. A frontal attack would be suicide. The cat was too large, too powerful, and had the advantage of higher ground. I needed strategy, not just strength. Moving with painstaking slowness, I circled around, finding a path that led upward, approaching the ledge from behind and above. The climb was treacherous, loose stones threatening to give away my position with every step. When I finally reached a position above the mountain lion, I paused, gathering myself for the attack. One chance. That's all I would have. If I missed, the cat would either flee or turn on me with lethal intent. I measured the distance, calculating the leap, and launched myself downward. My timing was perfect. I struck the mountain lion squarely between the shoulders, my jaws clamping down on the back of its neck. The predator yowled in shock and pain, twisting violently to dislodge me. We tumbled together off the ledge, a snarling tangle of fur and claws that hit the ground below with bone-jarring force. The impact stunned me momentarily, giving the cat an opening. Sharp claws raked my side, tearing through fur to the flesh beneath. Pain lanced through me, hot and immediate, but my wolf didn't relinquish her hold. The fight was brutal and swift, primal instincts driving both predators. The mountain lion was stronger, but I was fighting for more than survival. I was fighting for my future, my identity, my rightful place. That desperation gave me an edge the cat couldn't match. Finally, I managed to maneuver my jaws around its throat, closing with all the strength I possessed. The mountain lion thrashed frantically, then gradually grew still as its life ebbed away. When I was certain it was dead, I released my grip and stepped back, sides heaving with exertion, blood, both mine and the cat's, matting my fur. I allowed myself only a moment of rest before the next phase of my task. Shifting back to human form, I grimaced at the pain in my side where the mountain lion's claws had left deep gashes. The ceremonial dagger was secured in a sheath strapped to my calf, the only item I had carried with me on the hunt. With practiced movements that Galen had drilled into me the day before, I used the dagger to open the mountain lion's chest and extract its heart. The organ was still warm in my hands, pulsing with residual energy. I wrapped it carefully in large leaves before shifting back to wolf form, taking the precious bundle gently between my teeth. The journey back would be challenging. I was injured, carrying precious cargo, and acutely aware that sunset approached. Worse, I could sense a storm building, the air heavy with impending rain. I was perhaps halfway back to the pack house when I caught an alarming scent on the breeze. Wolf, unfamiliar, moving parallel to my path. Instinct urged me to increase my pace, but caution tempered my speed. The strange wolf could be a scout for an ambush ahead. My caution proved warranted when I detected 2 more scent signatures converging ahead of me. I stopped, setting down my bundle and testing the air. These weren't pack wolves. The scents were unfamiliar, carrying the distinctive musk of the northern pack. Alpha Thorn had sent more than observers, it seemed. He had dispatched hunters to ensure I failed. I considered my options rapidly. Confronting 3 wolves while injured and burdened with my kill would be disastrous. I needed another route. Picking up the heart again, I veered sharply east, away from my original path. The detour would cost precious time, but survival demanded it. The storm broke as I navigated the unfamiliar terrain, rain plastering my fur to my body and turning the forest floor treacherous. Lightning split the sky, followed by booming thunder that seemed to shake the very ground. Through it all, I pushed forward, determined to reach the pack house before sunset. The skies were deepening toward dusk when I finally emerged from the tree line, soaked, bleeding, and exhausted, but triumphant. The pack had assembled again in the clearing, huddled beneath makeshift shelters against the rain. Alpha Rowan stood at the center, his powerful frame tense as he scanned the forest edge. When he spotted me, relief washed visibly across his features. I padded forward into the clearing, head held high despite my injuries. The assembled wolves fell silent, eyes wide as they took in my appearance, bloodied but unbowed, the mountain lion's heart still clutched carefully in my jaws. I approached Alpha Rowan and carefully set my prize at his feet, then shifted back to human form. My tunic and pants, which I'd removed before my initial shift, had been placed nearby. Emma hurried forward with them, helping me dress despite my wounds. "A mountain lion," Beta James said, unable to keep the shock from his voice. "She took down a mountain lion alone and evaded northern pack hunters in the process," I added loudly, my voice carrying across the clearing. "3 wolves who attempted to intercept me on my return journey." Alpha Rowan's expression darkened dangerously. "Northern hunters in our territory?" The 3 official observers from the northern pack shifted uncomfortably, clearly unaware of this unauthorized incursion. "We had no knowledge of this, Alpha Rowan," one insisted. "Alpha Thorn sent us only to observe. We will address this violation of territory," Alpha Rowan promised, his tone leaving no doubt about the consequences that would follow. Then he turned back to me, his expression softening. "But first, we complete the ritual." Elder Mira stepped forward with a silver chalice. Following tradition, I took up the ceremonial dagger and cut a slice from the mountain lion's heart, squeezing the blood into the chalice. Alpha Rowan did the same, our blood mingling with that of the prey. When the chalice was filled, Elder Mira held it up for all to see. "Blood of the prey, blood of the Alpha, blood of the Luna," she intoned. "Life given that the pack may thrive. Strength shared that the pack may be protected." And she handed the chalice to Alpha Rowan, who drank deeply before passing it to me. The taste was rich and metallic, primal in a way that spoke to my wolf even in human form. As I drank, a ripple of energy passed through the assembled wolves, a collective acknowledgement that the ancient ritual had been fulfilled. "The trial is complete," Elder Mira announced. "The Luna has proven her worth before the pack and the ancestors." She lifted the sacred crown from its cushion and approached me. "Kneel, daughter of the Eastern bloodline, rightful Luna of the Western pack." I knelt, rain streaming down my face, mingling with blood and tears I hadn't realized I was shedding. Elder Mira placed the crown upon my head, its familiar weight settling like a homecoming. "Rise, Luna Elise," she commanded. "Take your place beside your Alpha." As I stood, Alpha Rowan stepped forward and took my hand, raising it high for all to see. "The pack recognizes its Luna," he called out. "Any who challenge her, challenge me." His gaze swept deliberately to Beta James, who after a moment's hesitation lowered his eyes in submission. One by one, the pack members knelt, acknowledging their Luna, some eagerly, others reluctantly, but all recognizing the power of ancient tradition and successful trial. Even the northern pack observers knelt, a gesture that would carry significant diplomatic weight when reported back to Alpha Thorn. Later, after my wounds had been treated and the pack feast had begun in the Great Hall, Alpha Rowan led me to a quiet alcove away from the celebrations. "You did more than pass a trial today," he said, brushing a strand of damp hair from my face. "You changed the balance of power, within our pack and beyond our borders." "The northern pack," I said, remembering the hunters in the forest. "They'll deny sending them," he nodded. "Of course. But their observers witnessed your accusation and saw their Alpha's strategy fail. It changes things. For the better? For the different." His smile held both pride and a predator's satisfaction. "Thorn will reassess his approach. He may even consider the alliance your parents once proposed, though on different terms." The mention of my parents brought a familiar ache, but also a sense of continuation. Their vision might still come to pass, just not as they imagined it. "And not as their killers feared," Alpha Rowan added, his eyes darkening momentarily. "Beta James will step down tomorrow. I've already selected his replacement." "Who?" I asked, though I had my suspicions. Galen. He's loyal, capable, and was never part of the old conspiracy. He paused. There will be other changes, too. Those who participated in suppressing your true nature will face justice. Not vengeance, but justice. I nodded, finding myself more interested in healing than retribution. And us? I asked softly. What changes there? His expression softened, the alpha momentarily giving way to the man. That depends entirely on what you want, Luna. I reached up to touch his face, feeling the strength beneath the skin, the controlled power that matched the newly awakened force within me. I want what I've been denied my whole life. The chance to be who I truly am, beside someone who sees me clearly. He turned his face to press his lips against my palm. I've always seen you, Elise, even when you couldn't see yourself. The truth of his words resonated through me, all those years when I'd thought myself invisible. He had been watching, waiting, planning for this moment when I would reclaim my birthright and stand beside him not as a broken Omega, but as his equal, his Luna, his partner, his mate. The pack will need time to adjust, I said, practical concerns momentarily asserting themselves. Some may never fully accept me. They don't need to accept, he replied with a slight shrug. They need only to respect. Acceptance will come with time, as they see what we build together. And what are we building? I asked. His smile held promise and challenge in equal measure, a future worthy of both our bloodlines. A pack stronger than either the Eastern or Western was alone. Perhaps in time, the alliance your parents envisioned. The weight of that legacy should have felt crushing, but instead, it felt right. A mantle I was born to wear, a destiny delayed, but not denied. The crown upon my head, the wolf within my soul, the man before me, all pieces of a whole I was only beginning to comprehend. As the sounds of celebration echoed from the great hall, Alpha Rowan, my alpha, my mate, pulled me closer. But tonight, he murmured against my hair, we celebrate what you accomplished today. Tomorrow is soon enough to begin changing the world. In his arms, with my wolf humming contentedly beneath my skin and the sacred crown gleaming in the firelight, I finally found what had eluded me my entire life. Not just belonging, but rightful place. Not just acceptance, but recognition. Not just survival, but the promise of truly living. The rejected Omega was gone forever. In her place stood Luna Elise, daughter of Alphas, mate to Alpha Rowan, an architect of her own destiny. As Rowan's lips found mine in a kiss that promised both tenderness and passion, I surrendered to the certainty that this, all of this, was always meant to be mine.